I say.
I didn't mean it in a bad way. No.
No, I understand. I don't take it negatively. I mean, as long as you don't say I have rabies, I take it. But rabid usually means someone who's a mad dog in that sense. But what you really mean is I'm passionate.
You're very passionate, and I didn't understand that when I first heard you. But then
right, because you're used to a quiet, laconic voice. That's how the politicians gull the snake.
Savage. The Savage Nation.
Takes the news and tears it apart and puts it back together in a way that I can understand it.
Talk 910 KNEW.
Pretending that I'm doing well. My need is such, I pretend.
So we have a brilliant rhetorician for puppeteer-in-chief saying nothing about Korea firing rockets, about U.S. soldier capture in Iraq. Instead, he comments on Michael Jackson, and we know finally what we got. And we got a president who grew up not on the classics, but on Michael Jackson. Now you understand the whole story. You don't need to know anymore. There's some good stories on michaelsavage.com that maybe you'll get to. Many of you don't go to the Internet for your news. You listen to radio, and that's fine, whatever. This is the primary thing. It's July 4th weekend. They got the fireworks. No one knows what they're for. No one knows what they celebrate. No one knows what they symbolize. But the important thing is that you go and you get the fireworks, the hot dog, the dyspepsia, whatever. But whatever you do, don't teach your children that it's Independence Day, and it means independence from the evil UK. Don't teach them it's independence from the oppressive, authoritarian British government that July 4th celebrates. No. Now you say, well, I got an axe to grind with the UK. You're darn right I do. Oh, yeah, I got an axe to grind. Many of you would cancel summer trips to England. One listener canceled a $10 million worth of goods that he was going to buy for his factory from the UK. And I'm not suggesting you do it. You don't do that because one day my name will be taken off that list, and they will apologize to me because I didn't belong on the list with murderers. But till that day comes, you make your own decision. That's all. I can't believe that even the aging leftists like Helen Thomas, who harangued Bush, poor Bush, for 8 years, attacked President Obama's spokesmouth, Gibbs, and said that even Nixon didn't try to do what you're trying to do to us. It's amazing that you're only answering carefully screened questions. You have fake town hall meetings. We have that whole sound thing. Do we worth play any of that? Yeah, just play at the beginning. Clip 1. Start it.
It feels, I mean, the concept of a town hall, I think, is to have an open public forum. And this sounds like a very tightly controlled audience. And with the questions, why do it that way? Why not?
How about we do this? How about you can ask me that question tomorrow based on what questions were asked, rather than pre-selecting your question based on something that may or may not come to you.
Why pre-select? Why not just open it up to people and allow any question to come in?
Well, Chip, I think if you get on your computer from your email address, have you sent in your question?
I think that would be inappropriate. This is for the public.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Are you not a member of the public?
Well, I think if you were going to allow questions from the press, you'd have us in a prominent position over there and allow us to ask questions. You haven't done that.
Let's not get into the notion of where you'd be sitting if we asked you. If
you're arrogant, this schmuck is.
But well out of shouting range.
But you could email.
Would you put my question in there? Well, I don't think so.
Maybe. Have you emailed?
I mean, this is a town hall.
If you have an email.
This is an open forum for the public to ask questions, but it's not really open. But it's not open.
Based on what?
Based on the information that your staff gave us on how the audience and the questions are being selected.
The questions are being selected by people that email on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, they're not deciding what questions actually.
Chip, I appreciate, again,
tightly controlled.
I appreciate, again,
unlike his town meetings all through the campaign.
I appreciate the pre-selected question on your part.
Yes. How about that?
I think that's a very safe bet. But again, let's. How about we do this? I promise we will interrupt the AP's tradition of asking the first question. I'll let you ask me a question tomorrow as to whether you thought the questions at the town hall meeting that the president conducted in Annandale.
That's not his part. Part is the control from here. We have never had that in the White House. And we have had some.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll let you amend her question.
I'm amazed at you people who call for openness and transparency.
No, you haven't even heard the questions.
It doesn't matter. It's the process.
You have left open the system.
Even if there's a tough question, it's a question coming from somebody who was invited or who has screened, or the question was screened.
Chip, yeah, let's have this discussion at the conclusion of the town hall meeting. How about that? I think
We have to get now.
Good for you, Helen. Go, girl.
you object to it at the town hall meeting, Helen. What's a pattern?
It's a pattern of controlling the press.
How so? Is there any evidence currently going on that I'm controlling the press?
No.
Poorly, I might add.
Your formal engagements are prepackaged.
How so?
Well, and
How
controlling the
so?
public.
By calling
That's
reporters the night before to tell them they're going to be called up? That is shocking.
We've had this discussion ad nauseum, and
Of course you would, because you don't have any answers.
because I didn't know you were going to ask a question, Helen. Good.
Well, you should have.
Wait till see it. Thank you for your support. I'm going to wait for Helen.
That's good. Have you emailed your question today?
I don't have
Can you
to
imagine
email it.
this
I can
low
just
life,
right now when
this
I'm-
low life? Hey, hold it a minute. Do you have any idea what you just listened to? You've listened to a revolution occurring in the White House press office, where a guy is measured and is controlled, and his mainstream is Chip Reed, is finally standing up to that snickering snot nose, way out of his league. This jerk Gibbs, I don't know where they got him from, but he's way out of control. He should be fired. And then to top it off, Helen Thomas, who's a far left, radical type. But even she has had enough of this snot nose, and she takes them on. There's a revolution going on in the White House press corps right now. They see it finally. And I wanted you folks who've tuned into the Savage Nation today to see that there is hope, because frankly, the so-called press that we have is supposed to be a watchdog for the people, not a lapdog for the government. And unfortunately, as you well know, they became the latter rather than the former. And the only watchdogs left are Michael Savage and a few others in the electronic media, some in the print media as well, few and far between. But when you have a press that's no longer a watchdog for the people, what you have is a dictatorship. And Helen Thomas sees that. She said, is this guy, So that's what we're talking about, truthfully. Arizona, Frank, you're up on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Oh, Mike, as a long-time listener, the first time I finally got through without getting a busy signal, listen, my heart's pumping because you are the light of everybody's tunnel in this whole United States. You pick everything up, all of my brain that gets up into the atmosphere, and you pull it all down for me every day. You make the common sense out of everything. And
thank you, and that's very nice, and it's heartfelt. I hear it. I'm not being cynical about it, but it's a tough job every day when you think about it, Frank, because the media has gone to sleep. They're like in narcolepsy.
Oh yeah. And when I say you pull it all in, I mean, and you really do. I had the whole last year, I had put barbed wire around my radio, so when the Associated Prussians have their little news blips between your show, I don't turn it off. Because you're so frustrated. It's just like
Associated Prussians. That's a clever one. I like it. That's not a bad one. Hey, Frank, how do you take Arizona?
how do I like it?
Yeah, how do you handle it?
It's got its times where you just got to sit back and do nothing all day, but it's dry. It's a lot better than New York. I was in New York when the towers went down. I had to move out where I could just get clear and get away from all the little beady liberal eyes looking at you.
Well, I hope you have a good time out there in that fantasy land. Thanks for calling. Here's a new story to get your weekend going. And if you're faint of heart, I suggest you hold on to something very hard. Senate bill fines people refusing health coverage. That's right, my friends. Americans who refuse to buy affordable medical coverage under Obama's fascist plan could be hit with fines of more than $1,000 under a health care overhaul bill unveiled Thursday by key Senate fascist Democrats looking to fulfill Chairman Mao Zedong Obama's top domestic policy. Americans, if you refuse to buy a medical coverage plan under Chairman Obama's universal coverage program, in order to make certain that illegal aliens are covered and all of their relatives and every other crank in America, you could be fined $1,000. Now, it gets higher. That's on an individual. If you are a family and you refuse to be covered by the government fascist health plan, you're going to pay much higher penalties than individuals. That's what your Senate just did to you. That's what's going on in the country right now. In a statement, Chairman Obama welcomed the legislation, saying, quote, "It reflects many of the principles I've laid out." Well, I'm sure it does, which is that you can control Americans from the cradle to the grave. You can control their medication. But more importantly, you and your sneaks can look into anyone's medical history with the press of a button, and you can see how to manipulate them. That's all. 1-800-449-8255. Chicago, Judy, you're up on the Savage Nation.
Well, I want to thank you for all the wisdom you give us.
You're welcome.
Hello?
Yeah, you're welcome. And what else?
Oh, well, the recipe, the cashew tomato chow mein. Now, that's a great Chinese recipe.
Where'd you find the recipe?
In your book, Healing Children Naturally.